The term bullet time is a dramatic convention that Andy and Larry made up. Bullet time is basically a mind over matrix moment where
we detach the time and space of the subject from the camera. You always know that you're doing something that is groundbreaking. If someone asks something that you go, maybe.
You know, a lot of people in the visual effects industry, early on, when they knew what we were doing for Matrix, thought we were crazy. Yeah, you're smart, but you're not that smart.
It's like a small idea that gets bigger and bigger and bigger and then finally becomes supernatural. It is just staggering.
Where we were in the mid-90s was attempting to create the illusion that a camera could move at subsonic speeds, a virtual-looking camera that had to be done in a very physically laborious way. We shot that test in a junkyard with a handful of still cameras that we bought locally. 120 cameras and 2 motion picture cameras set up.
It was photographic, it was two-dimensional, and really there was only one path that our camera could run because we had to plan it and lay out all these still cameras.
From that point, we have found ourselves making what we call today virtual cinema and virtual cinematography, which is where the camera is detached in its time and space from the subjects.
still bullet time, and we move in and out of amazing moments, but the methods that we're using are completely different.
Virtual cinematography is a phrase that John coined. It's using real live photography elements, whether it be stills photographs or a piece of motion picture footage or high-def photography, and manipulating it inside a computer to be able to repurpose it and reformat it so you can see it from different angles, different camera speeds. It's kind of a digitization of the real world that then allows you to have a virtual camera that can fly anywhere in that scene.
The possibilities for slowing down the motion, speeding up the motion, and basically like throwing the camera wherever you want.
It allows you to move the camera in ways that a real camera would by no means be able to move.
So it escalates way beyond first experiments in bullet time, because we really could get any angle on this action now. Infinite camera perspectives are available.
A little shorter on the winch part, because it's really the briefest part of it, and a little longer on
the virtual human process is a combination of the motion capture and universal capture.
You're in the air, and here comes the flame, and in the back, you feel?
The real thing that we were very, very scared with at the beginning was how could you produce a rendition of your principal actors at a realistic enough level that you don't create a loss of belief from the audience. What we decided to do was build something that was based on analyzing a real performance.
Nothing will surpass the qualities that a random performance could give you from a real actor, real person.
We pretty much settled on the faces would be the hardest thing to recreate.
We decided to build this system, which we call Universal Capture System, which consists of 6 high-definition cameras and arranged around that actor's face.
If you filmed a real actor with film cameras or digital cameras, as it turned out to be, from enough angles, and were able to write some very clever sort of machine vision processing algorithms, you'll actually be able to produce a very realistic digitization of one of our actors.
And from that source material, we derive all moving dimensional models with all the texture associated with the face.
This is the sort of new and fun part of the process, a procedure known as motion capture.
The more of the real actor we can use, the better.
The stick figure really represents the bones inside of the character, and so the nice thing is that you can put that inside any character.
The scene that it's most applied to is the Burly Brawl, and the procedure for that was to figure out the master plan for the choreography, captured all these little components, and then composed.
for the Burley Brawl. Because there were 350 Agent Smiths in one shot, there's no way you would be able to do it any other way. We pretty much had to do it as digital humans.
So looking at virtual Keanu, it is Keanu performing underneath that CG shell. And all of his training pays off for our material just as it does on film.
Over many years of development and many people working very hard to try and get the essence of Hugo and Keanu into these digital characters.
At this point, nothing is real. This is all just computer graphic.
The backgrounds and the original bullet time stuff were done through a technique called image-based rendering, where we took still photographs of the sets that Owen Paterson built or some of the live-action environments, and we're able to reconstruct dimensionally what them sets were, so that we could then, inside the computer, produce a virtual fly-through.
What this means is we take photographs and we project them onto geometry, which allows us to create 3D environments.
It's possible for somebody to build a set, like Owen Paterson, to design and build a set, but we can go and photograph it and recreate it exactly inside the computer. So we can pretty much match Bill's lighting and Bill's photographic look.
That really is the essence of virtual cinematography.
For Trinity Falls and Reloaded, specific buildings in Sydney have been selected to be the environment. And so those have been all photographed.
All the way down.
It doesn't involve us completely making synthetic creations in the computer. We still need a real set, real lighting, and real photography to get it to work, because it actually gives a very realistic look to the movie.
It's amazing what you got to do just to get the rudimentary components as a starting place, the canvas, to put the other elements on. So today we're going to get our endless megacity sprawl.
Megacity is based on tons and tons and tons and tons of photographs of Sydney, Australia. Sydney, Australia isn't necessarily the look of the Matrix, so we had to repurpose a lot of it and extend buildings, change color palettes, make them look a little bit more interesting. And that was done by our map painting department and our virtual background department.
We created buildings based on the photos, but extended them to 100 stories, sometimes 200 stories tall buildings.
We see Megacity at its grandest in the Superfly. It's an excellent combination of virtual backgrounds, matte painting, and synthetic characters.
The number one obstacle for doing flying successfully was weightlessness and the feeling that you were not encumbered by gravity and the physical constraints that doing rigs on sets brings you. So we had a blue screen shoot that involved special rigs, and then at the same time we begun animation of the other superhero human flying shots.
A lot of things that we're doing is taking a lot of wire stunts and making them look like they're not on wires. Kind of like digital wire removal in CG world. And also stuff that's like impossible to capture, we would just go in and hand animate it.
With hand animation, you're able to get a much more fluid look. Really gets a performance that you can nail down to the millimeter. In the Superfly, 70% of the rain that you see is synthetic computer-generated rain.
Integrating computer graphic rain with real rain and different layers deep of both.
It took us a long time to get the rain system to match the live action, to the point that we could actually insert in the middle synthetic rain. The wet look for the characters was quite a challenge. Our cloth department not only excelled at producing a really kick-ass looking dynamic for wet clothing for Neo and for Smith, but also were able to produce really excellent looking water spray that every time they fight or hit each other, spray goes flying off.
A lot of technology being arrayed to basically understand the water, how it really works in the real world, and then how to stylize it. How about really hard?
Action!
The punch is the definitive blow delivered by Neo. We're looking to really amp up the drama of a fist, and it will be smashing through rain that's nearly suspended, and the rain will smash off in a zero GE way. So we're basically going to cover it virtually with computer graphic fist seen with somewhat of vertigo camera lensing to create a real sense of enormous mass.
This sequence is one of the biggest visual effects sequences in the movie. Blue screens, CG rain, actual CG digital Neo and Smith characters. This has everything thrown in.
It's just a logical extension of the whole notion of CGI.
Larry and Eddie will take risks. They kind of pushed us into reaching them extra limits. It's not a question that you may want to do it or you can't do it, you have to do it.
Filmmaking in general has now this new tool,
which I believe allows directors and writers and cinematographers to transcend all of the physical boundaries that are placed upon us by shooting here in the everyday world. It liberates the filmmaker in ways that they never have been before. And that is a pretty long stretch in that time frame.